I want to take advantage, well, for the new people, Tracy, nice to meet you, Barry. Well, to introduce ourselves, here is Carrie from Sister Parish. I'm not sure if you already met her. She's the director of the organization, and Jorge from El Salvador. And well, it's a pleasure to be here with you and to help you tonight. So thanks, and Tracy.
Bonjour, hello everyone. It's wonderful to see your faces. My name is Wabishki Gwiden Ikwe, which means White North Wind Woman. Tracy L. Wilkie. I'm a citizen of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. I was born in Fargo into homelessness and raised on the reservation, Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. It's near the Canadian border. Yeah, I'm the mother of four adult children and two grandsons. I'm also sixth generation Wilkie of Scottish settlers. Shall I go into what I know about the doctrine?
Right.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Just remember to don't talk as long as I do without getting it translated.
Okay.
I forget.
The doctrine is very old. It's my understanding in the 1400s. It started, but the US government officials use religious Christendom, often unconsciously, to justify the taking of Native American land and deny the original independence of our Native nations. The Old Testament refers to the chosen people that were given the divine right to the promised land and Christian discovery. That still affects us today, very much so. I'll start with boarding schools, with the United States boarding schools. In 1892, after the Indian Wars, or what was referred to as the Indian Wars, there was a gentleman named General George Pratt who started the assimilation and our forced assimilation of Native Americans here in North Dakota and throughout the United States. These schools were run often by Christian ministries, and children were taken forcefully from their homes. Some didn't have parents and were taken, and I'm a fourth generation to be sent to these schools. My son was raised by my parents, and he was the fifth and the last of our family. In the words of General Pratt, these schools were used to, quote, kill the Indian and save the man. I've heard many horrific stories from my ancestors. Some refused, my paternal grandmother refused to talk about what happened to her there. But there was psychological abuse, emotional abuse. They weren't allowed to speak our language. Their religious beliefs were not been able to practice. They were beaten. They went through a lot of torture. The effects of these schools still affect us today and our future generations, because we carry the trauma of our relatives experienced, and but we also carry the resilience of working our way out of this, and I'm thankful you all are here and being a part of the change that needs to happen. Part of
Sorry, Tracy, you mute the microphone. I couldn't hear you. Sorry, yeah, it's mute. Yeah, thank you.
and Native American women are 10 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than other women. There are high levels of human trafficking because of many different reasons with the colonization process. I'm also a human trafficking survivor and a torture survivor. My daughter is currently still being trafficked, and I hope to continue to bring awareness to these atrocities. In North Dakota, we have, there's around 37,000 Native Americans here in North Dakota. And there are, in the United States, we are only 1.1% of the population. And statistics say that 25% of us are survivors of human trafficking, but I believe it's much higher. And I believe it's much higher. That goes back to the boarding school mental conditioning, of the shame of sharing the atrocities that came with the colonization process and with the doctrine. We have high levels of high blood pressure and diabetes, obesity, mental health challenges that must be addressed. And that comes from being forced on reservations and being dependent on government rations. Most of my family still lives on the reservation. I don't at this time. As Native Americans, we did not get our citizenship on our own land in the United States until 1924. And part of my story and the work that I do goes back to when I was at the worst of my times. I told Creator that should I survive, I would fight for everybody. I would fight for human rights any way I can for everybody. I worked with people all over the land, all over the world, and I know the struggles that everyone has faced because the doctrine of discovery has affected us all as Indigenous people. And I consider us one people from North America to South America. We're one people. I arrived back in Fargo. It will be 4 years ago on December 5th. And probably within the first couple months that I've been back in my homeland, I met Vicki and Joe and Charlie and Barry and a lot of other good people fighting the good fight. What brought me back home was my mother getting sick. It brought me back to Fargo, North Dakota, where I was born, and I've been giving another opportunity to make life better for myself and for others too. I get involved in just about everything I can. I'm currently on the board for the North Dakota Women's Network, and I will start on the board for the Jeremiah program, and I'm also chair of protection and advocacy for individuals with mental illness in North Dakota. I recently accepted a position organizing with Honor the Earth, and I'll be working at the Welcome Water Protector Center. Part of what I do is to get our treaties acknowledged. The United States made many treaties with different tribes that our treaties are continuing to be violated. It happened with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and the No Dapple movement. And it happened with the Line 3 on Anishinaabe lands in Minnesota. And that, even though it's in Minnesota, it includes me and my people because we are descendants from there. And the 1855 treaty is being violated because they're putting our water at risk again, and they're putting our monomen at risk, which is the wild rice. And that's part of our creation story.
Okay, thank you. Carrie,
Te
la
ayudo
palabra.
un poquito.
Sí, por favor, la palabra treaties no.
Tratados
Ah.
o acuerdos gubernamentales.
Gracias. Bueno, sí, también trabaja en la parte de los acuerdos o tratados gubernamentales existentes, tratados que han afectado a las tribus, como la tribu Shuth, que se encuentra en Dakota del Norte, e igual muchas otras tribus. La tribu a la que ella también pertenece ha sido afectado porque hay tratados que han sido violados y no han sido respetados. Entonces, eso también es parte de lo que trabajo.
Sí, y tal vez para dar un poco de contexto, porque hay como varios grandes oleoductos que quieren que pasen por las tierras indígenas, y eso viola los tratados de proteger el agua, de proteger como el arroz salvaje, que es parte de la historia de creación de los pueblos indígenas del norte, igual como el maíz para la gente de Guatemala, ¿verdad? Entonces, es algo, no es como una planta, pero es sagrado para el pueblo también, y todos esos oleoductos que quieren pasar por esos terrenos, hay grandes luchas de personas que quieren proteger su terreno, su territorio indígena de estos oleoductos. So yeah, sorry, I was just getting a little context about the pipelines and the sacredness of wild rice, and it's kind of like corn for the people of Guatemala, because that's part of the creation story of the people of Guatemala, the indigenous people of Guatemala.
In closing, I attended a workshop with my friend Stephen Newcomb. He wrote the book Pagans in the Promised Land, and it's decoding the doctrine of Christian discovery. And it's quite interesting. I've read it a couple times, but I still have a lot to learn about it. And yes, I don't know if there's any translations in Espanol, but it's definitely worth taking a look at, because like I said earlier, it affects all of us as Indigenous people. Part of the work he does is with the Lakota and the Nakota and Dakota people here in North Dakota and South Dakota. We've been fighting for a long time to get what's known as Mount Rushmore back, which is part of the Lakota creation story. I'm a descendant of Chief Red Cloud over there, and I've always felt that I would see the day where Mount Rushmore would be returned. I'll be open to questions, but in closing, I would like to say I know this is heavy stuff to hear and to take in, and to please take care of yourselves and do something nice for yourselves to replenish your spirits.
Yeah, my question is about these tribes, if they are all on their reservations, like if they're not allowed to get out of the place and buy stuff, or they fully are, well, the government takes care of them completely.
That's a good question. At one time, we weren't allowed to leave without permission, but now we could leave whenever we want to. Lots of people choose to continue to live there. Very high rates of poverty and unemployment, and issues that need to be addressed. Housing, high levels of incarceration. Also, there are different reservations in Dakota.
Thank you, Tracy, for sharing with us. It's a very difficult situation for the indigenous communities, indigenous people around the world. We all have our own or fights, and we have similar situations that we share, and that make us see the need to get involved to do something, because we can see someone else who's starving and we are on better conditions, and so we may find a way to help each other, because at the end it's for all of us.
Yes. Yes.
Any other question, or maybe the other way, if you, Tracy, you have any questions for friends in Guatemala that you would like to know about them, or any? Well, Barry, I think you're over here if you want to know something about our friends. Yeah, I wanted to ask you if your family is still living in the reservation.
Yes, most of my family still lives on the reservation. I chose to leave because it's very hard living. I went back there for 6 months after being gone for 24 years, and it was 10 times worse now than when I left.
And do they have the opportunity to leave the place, to leave the reservation?
Yes, yes. But a lot of people choose not to. And I'll speak from my son's experience. My son was 5th generation boarding school, and he has a lot of mental health challenges, and I attribute that to the generation after generation after generation of psychological trauma, where he was afraid to leave because he didn't know how to interact with others. But I'm happy to say that he's been living here in Fargo, two apartment buildings on the side of me, for about 9 months now. And he's doing work and he's receiving, getting help for his mental health issues, but there's still challenges there, but he's doing it.
And I wanted to tell you that our realities ain't that different for in Latin America or around the world. We all have these challenges, and we may hear the voice of God who's still calling us to change our lives, to be better person.
Que se pueda apuntar en el hermanamiento. Ah, no, en connection, welcome connection.
If you can just get enrolled in Welcome Connection and be part of this relationship, you're welcome.
I think one of the things that happens when we're talking about the people that's where they choose to leave, but they choose to leave. There is the issue of racism, and that people who are not white or of the white privilege are often treated in a race with racism. There's crime against Native American people. We also have a number of many other cultures living in Fargo that have come, many as refugees or immigrants, and they experience racism, and that's something that we're always aware that it's against God's people. So I'm trying to say that that is rampant. That is something that we all are acknowledging and trying to become aware of our own institutionalized racism and how we treat people that are different from us. And I think maybe people choose to stay on the reservation because it's safer there in terms of being with people that are like them. Because to leave the reservation is to face new problems with the racism that is rampant.
It's also the way I understand it's like these places are like a common, how you would say comuna? Comuna?
Like a commune.
Commune, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so these places are like a commune. Things that I saw on TV and movies, how things were.
Sorry, the sound is, I don't know if it's you or, yeah, now it's
Better? Okay, thanks. So yes, to address these situations, things that we must improve, and we may pray for the people to get in a better situation.
And I see my prayers being answered with the connections I've made with people who are making a difference here in Fargo.
You continue to conscientize us to the issues by your presence with us, and we need your voice. We need our voices together to make change and make life better for all people so that they are treated with dignity and equality. That's our faith calling, and that's part of our sister parish relationship, is that we learn together about the difficult things that you talked about. And I just want to thank you for sharing your story. I am always moved when I hear you share your experiences, and thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and share those stories with us, because they're really hard.
Y bueno,
Thank you, Vicky.
thank you. Y tú haces el cambio, el estar aquí compartiendo con nosotros tu historia, generando conciencia sobre esta temática en cada uno de nosotros, y agradecerte por compartir esta historia con todos. Me conmueve mucho cada vez que lo escucho, y pues así generamos conciencia, así que muchas gracias.
Gracias, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Yes.
We work for change for our grandchildren. I see Barry has one on his lap.
I just have a general question. Do you know the percentage of the indigenous population in Guatemala? Tracy mentioned that it is 1.1% of the United States is indigenous. Is that correct, Tracy? Did I hear
Yeah.
you correct? Okay.
Yes.
I think it's much higher in Guatemala. Just for you to understand, the indigenous population struggles with many of the same issues, but what is the percentage?
Algo así.
I'm not very sure, but I think it's around 45%.
I just Googled it and it says 43%. So Miriam,
Yeah, Miriam.
Lo acabo de buscar en internet y sale que es el 43%. Así que muy bien, Miriam. Estuvo. muy cerca.
Yeah, and a lot of, I mean, they do say it's probably even higher, but there are issues of people not wanting to identify as Indigenous once they leave their communities because of the racism that they face. So there's all the issues of erasure of culture once they leave their community.
I'm grateful that you reached out to me, Vicky. And not to toot my own horn, but I could hear in my voice and see in myself the healing that has happened since coming home. And I thank each and every one of you for your prayers, because I think you saw when I first got back how raw and hurt I was, but I'm healing and I'm getting stronger.
Felicitaciones, Tracy.
Congratulations, Tracy.
Miigwech, thank you.
Tracy, eres muy valiente. Espero que todo siga sanando en ti. Vamos a estar orando por ti. Te voy a tener en mis oraciones. Sigue adelante.
Thank you, everybody, for joining this tonight. And you can share the recording. There will be a link that you'll send. I don't know how that works. Is it you send a link and then we can pass that along to our other folks who weren't able to be here tonight?
Yeah, if it's okay with you, Tracy, we sometimes what we do is put it on YouTube, but like unlisted or private, and then we can share. If you don't want it to be completely public, for instance, we can share it completely publicly, or if you'd rather have it just be with people that weren't on the call, then we leave it as like private or unlisted. And if that doesn't feel comfortable to you, then we can put it on a Google, then we can do it a different way too, but we will share a link. I'll let you say, we will share a link. And
You could share it public.
yeah,
You could
okay.
share it public. Yeah, there's lots that people can do like around the world to learn more about what's happening here in North Dakota and to put in the work for our next 7 generations.
Thank you so much.
There is a movement in the various denominations here and in other parts of the world to have this doctrine of discovery repudiated. And the more that we know and the more we learn, the more advocacy and the more we can push for that repudiation. There is word out there that there are going to be some announcements about this from the Pope. So we're not sure what that means. And if I get it right, I understand it's the Pope that can make that declaration. So, yeah, so we need to keep advocating for that, and we will. Well, maybe it's time to say good night.
Es tiempo de decir buenas noches.